China's cityscapes, once proud emblems of ambition and prosperity, now paint a starkly different picture. Beneath glittering overpasses, people wrapped in threadbare blankets dig through trash bins for scraps, their hands stretched out where office workers once hurried by with coffee in hand. This isn't the glossy image China presents to the world. From Shenzhen to Chengdu, quiet despair is surfacing in the open as joblessness and hunger seep into everyday life. A decade ago, China felt unstoppable. Skyscrapers shot up like weeds, luxury stores sparkled under a sea of neon. The Chinese dream was more than a slogan, it was a promise, especially to the younger generation raised with expectations of comfort, status, and endless growth. But while the skyline soared, deeper fractures spread beneath the glittering surface. The so-called economic miracle was fueled by unrelenting construction, surging exports, and a housing frenzy. For a time, it worked. Millions were lifted out of poverty, farmlands transformed into megacities. The world marveled at China's lightning speed rise, but the cracks were always there, papered over by denial and propaganda. Inequality widened as local governments plunged into unsustainable debt to keep the building boom alive. Migrant workers chased unstable, low-paid jobs with no safety net. Young graduates were churned out into a job market that didn't want them. The social safety system, barely functional, especially for those without a coveted urban household registration. Then came the pandemic, and with it, a brutal reckoning. Lockdown suffocated small businesses. The export engine sputtered. The property market, once a symbol of invincibility, started to crack. Tech giants crumbled under regulatory assaults. The illusion of infinite growth collapsed under its own weight. In the aftermath, the bleeding didn't stop, it just got quieter. Companies laid off workers in silence. Factories shuttered. Government support evaporated. Meanwhile, basic living costs soared. In the biggest cities, wages fell behind rising rents, food prices, and healthcare bills, pushing even the once comfortable into quiet desperation. The middle class is vanishing. People who once saved for down payments now sleep on pavement. Factory veterans wait hours for temp gigs. College graduates with master's degrees turn to live streaming or food delivery to survive. Shopping malls once filled with eager consumers now sit in eerie silence, replaced by tents and makeshift shelters. Food banks are swamped. This isn't a short-term slump, it's a full-blown unraveling of a system addicted to speed over sustainability. From Guangzhou's alleyways to Xi'an's streets, Beijing's high-rises to Chengdu's underpasses, the symptoms are clear. Families sleep beside luxury towers, elderly scavengers pick through bins for recyclables. Children line up at donation kitchens, their parents silent with shame. Before they're censored, social media videos expose the truth. Bridges turned into shanty towns, brawls over food waste, unemployed workers protesting at factory gates. In one clip, a former Dongguan manager sobs beside a burning barrel. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. In another, a Wuhan University graduate holds a sign, "Master's degree will work for food." In 2023, the Chinese government abruptly stopped reporting youth unemployment after the rate passed 20%. But silence doesn't hide the crisis, it amplifies it. Independent estimates now suggest real youth joblessness nears 40%. In city after city, college grads pack job fairs, only to find a few openings swarmed by hundreds of applicants. The dream of a white-collar future has crumbled into a fight to stay afloat. Across China's industrial heartlands, workers in manufacturing, logistics, and tech are facing a storm of silent collapse. Mass layoffs arrive without warning or severance. Once booming industrial parks in cities like Shenzhen and Suzhou now lie eerily still. Assembly lines abandoned, warehouses sealed. In provinces such as Hunan and Hebei, vast housing projects stand as empty gray skeletons, their construction crews dismissed without pay. White-collar engineers and managers are let go by automated messages. In a single day, thousands of middle-class families are stripped of their homes, income, and identity. For those already teetering on the edge, survival has become a daily war. Couriers curl up inside delivery boxes to sleep. Cleaning staff cram into overcrowded, crumbling dormitories. Street vendors are chased away by urban officers, their produce scattered and stalls overturned. In cities like Lanzhou and Fuzhou, homeless camps made of tarps and scrap wood are regularly bulldozed, only to rise again in the shadows of overpasses and alleyways. The government's response? Pretend it isn't happening. Rather than acknowledge the economic fracture, authorities clamp down on speech and tighten the illusion of stability and national strength. Job numbers are polished and padded. Police patrol the streets not to help but to erase the evidence. In wealthy districts of Shanghai, public benches are being retrofitted with metal spikes to keep the poor from resting. Cold, deliberate symbols of exclusion. Far from the cities, another silent crisis is unfolding. With urban jobs drying up, a wave of reverse migration has begun. Workers return to their rural villages, not triumphant, but defeated. They carry no savings, only disappointment. In poorer regions like Anhui and Henan, parents who once depended on remittances from children working in the city now face extra mouths to feed and no income to count on. Desperation spreads like drought, and more households fall below the poverty line each week. Beijing's proudly touted narrative of poverty elimination is unraveling. What emerges instead is a fractured country, urban centers filled with shuttered businesses and rising homelessness, and rural communities sinking deeper under economic strain. The distance between what was promised and what is real grows wider by the day. This crisis didn't fall from the sky. It was forged by decades of unchecked pressure points. At its core lie three pillars of instability, now giving way. First, a labor market that's failing its people. Once dependent on infrastructure booms and export factories, China now faces a reckoning as global demand slows and foreign firms exit. Factory cities like Dongguan, once humming with activity, are now haunted by silence and rusting gates. Second, the service economy that was supposed to lead China into the future never truly arrived. Big tech firms like Tencent, Alibaba, and Meituan have laid off tens of thousands. Once promising startups have shuttered quietly. The crackdown on private tutoring wiped out millions of education jobs almost overnight, derailing careers and dreams alike. These aren't just signs of an economic downturn, they're tremors of a deeper collapse. What's unfolding in China today is not a temporary recession, but a social unraveling. The so-called economic miracle has entered a grim new phase, and beneath the surface of government slogans and polished statistics lies a crisis that touches every corner of life. The most pressing question is no longer about GDP growth, but how long this silence can be sustained before it cracks wide open. China's youth are bearing the brunt of this collapse. Each year, millions graduate full of hope, degrees in hand only to face a wall of closed doors. The promise that education would lead to a better future has turned into a cruel illusion. Once a passport to success, university diplomas now serve as reminders of broken dreams. Many end up delivering takeout in the rain, riding scooters through endless traffic, or scrolling job apps late into the night from cramped dorm rooms, waiting for a callback that may never come. At the heart of this catastrophe lies a failed growth model. For decades, China's urban expansion was powered not by need, but by speculation. Apartments were built not for people to live in, but for investors to flip. Empty skyscrapers litter cities across the country, monuments to greed and debt. Millions were sold the fantasy of homeownership, only to find themselves trapped. Mortgages unpaid, buildings unfinished, savings wiped out. As real estate giants like Evergrande and Country Garden implode, the ripple effects are devastating. Construction sites have gone silent. Migrant workers are being dismissed without pay. Mortgage boycotts are erupting nationwide, with buyers refusing to pay for homes they'll never receive. In cities like Zhengzhou and Shenyang, the unemployed sleep in the ruins of half-built towers or underground garages turned into makeshift shelters. This isn't just a housing crisis. It's the collapse of trust, of stability, of an entire generation's aspirations. And through it all, the government's playbook remains unchanged. Deny, distract, disappear the problem. There is no robust safety net, no meaningful unemployment insurance, no comprehensive health care, no effective aid for the elderly scraping by on pensions that don't even cover groceries. Migrant workers, the backbone of China's urban rise, remain second-class citizens under the hukou system, shut out from basic city services. Those returning to rural hometowns find only decay. Empty villages, shuttered schools, and zero jobs. Beijing's response has been to spin fairy tales. State media flood screens with positive energy and stage stories of rural revival. Meanwhile, videos of soup kitchen lines, tent cities, and desperate protests vanish within hours of being posted. Truth is treated like a threat. Even talking about poverty or unemployment risks censorship or arrest. Fear, not transparency, guides the national narrative. And so, a country once filled with ambition and hope now lives under a heavy silence. A silence enforced by power, but cracking at the edges. Families go hungry as statistics smile. Graduates give up as leaders boast. The distance between China's ruling elite and its struggling citizens has never felt more vast or more dangerous. Because silence doesn't solve collapse, it only delays the reckoning.